Labour have lost slightly under half of the seats it was trying to defend. I think it's lost 8 councils so far. Brendan, this can hardly be a surprise, right? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what's happening to Labour is really striking and also hilarious. I'm enjoying it enormously. I'm watching all the collapse of their seats around the country, and I'm really enjoying it because this is a party that has governed very badly over the past couple of years and which has betrayed working class communities time and time again. So it's getting its comeuppance. Um, but the main thing I'd say about Labour's declining vote in these elections, people say that the ruling government always tends to do badly in local elections. So to compare it to America, the ruling government there would often do bad in the midterms because people kind of want to teach the government a lesson halfway through general elections. But this is something more serious than that. I think what Labour is suffering in these elections is much more historic, much deeper. It's gone much further than even losses that other governments have suffered in local elections. The mistake a lot of commentators make, and the Labour Party itself makes this mistake, is to think that Labour has a Keir Starmer problem, and that if only they were to replace their leader, I don't know, with Angela Rayner, who's apparently such an inspiring figure, or Andy Burnham, or Wes Streeting, or Ed Miliband, if only they were to get a fresh face, not that any of those are fresh faces, then apparently its fortunes would recover and it would go back to normal. That is to misunderstand the crisis facing the Labour Party. This is not a Keir Starmer problem. This is a Labour problem. This is a party in complete freefall, historic freefall. It's losing its kind of plummy middle-class public sector voters to the Greens and some of them to the Lib Dems. And it's losing its working class voters to Reform. It's shedding voter after voter in all directions. And it's because this is a party that was founded in 1900 to represent the interests of working class people. And not only does it no longer do that, it now openly agitates against the interests of working class people, both in terms of its failure to grow the economy, its failure to police our borders, its failure to respect British history or to respect British communities. On all of those fronts, it hasn't represented working class people, but in fact has betrayed them, has let them down, and has pursued a politics that runs directly counter to the interests of working class communities. So people will say, get rid of Starmer, get in some new blood, give a shake up at the top of the Labour Party. None of that will work, certainly not in the long term, because this is a party that has run its course, failed to do its duty, which was to represent working people, and deserves to die. And I think that's what we're witnessing, the slow death of the Labour Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to look at some of the results that have already come in to see just how bad things are for Labour and to see how delusional it is to think that simply a change of leadership, a cosmetic change at the top, could repair these things. Look at somewhere like Wigan, which is partly where Andy Burnham's old seat is. This is a area controlled by Labour for 50 years. That's been many of those seats have been lost to Reform. I think actually all of the seats that contested there lost to Reform. You look at Tameside, which is Angela Rayner's patch, again lost to Reform. There's delusion at the top of the Labour Party, of course. Keir Starmer saying that actually he thinks that this is going to toughen his resolve. These are tough results, but he's not going to lose his resolve. And actually, what voters are annoyed about is that the speed at which we're not delivering the change they asked for quickly enough. No, voters want the exact opposite of what you are proposing, Sir Keir. But also, again, from below as well, the party membership, the MPs. They believe that they're failing because they haven't been progressive enough. They see the real challenge as being from the Greens. You had Kat Eccles, one of the Northern MPs, saying we need to be more progressive. We need to stem the losses to the left. And you just think, what does that involve? That means what? Even higher taxes, more state spending, despite the fact that we have the highest government spending since World War II. Government spending, not necessarily a bad thing, but if that's what people wanted, it's clearly not resulting in people flocking to Labour. So again, a party just completely gripped by delusion from top to bottom, and voters are giving them a very bloody nose. Hopefully this is the final nail in the coffin for them.
And we should talk about the Conservatives. This is another party that wasn't projected to do very well. Maybe there are signs that they're doing a little bit better than anticipated. They did take back Westminster, which was a victory for them. How are things looking there, Brendan?
Not great, really. Let's put it like that, which I think is a bit of a shame because I think Kemi Badenoch has kind of rediscovered her mojo in recent months. I think she has demonstrated real leadership on issues like anti-Semitism, wokeness, women's rights, net zero. I think she's actually making good calls on all of those issues. And she speaks in a way that is quite normal, which is very unusual in British politics. Lots of people will have seen the clip of her getting into an argument with some kafir idiot about Jews and Israel and so on. And Kemi Badenoch held her own incredibly well, didn't back down, and spoke like a normal person, which Keir Starmer is no longer capable of doing. Ed Davey, God help him, he's too busy bungee jumping to talk to anyone. So it's a shame what's happening to the Conservative Party because Kemi Badenoch is a good leader. But at the same time, it's perfectly understandable. I mean, this is a party that's been in government for a long time over recent years. Well, for its entire history, it's been in government a lot. And it's not done what it should be doing. And in fact, a lot of the problems we face today, especially in relation to the sovereign integrity of our nation, economic downturn, the pursuit of suicidal policies in relation to net zero and climate change, and even wokeness, even a lot of the kind of woke ideals that have really caused a problem for women in particular, a lot of those really took off under Conservative governments. So they deserve to be reprimanded by the electorate as well. So they're not doing fantastically well. I do hope Kemi Badenoch can hold on. I hope the Tory wets, all those kind of 50-year-old blokes who really should be in the Lib Dems, I hope they don't conspire against her and drive her out because she's definitely the best thing the party's got going for it. But more broadly, I do think this is a party that deserves a slap on the wrists, and that is absolutely what it's getting.
Yeah, and I think the bright spots for the Conservatives that we've seen so far, retaking Westminster, retaking Wandsworth, shouldn't cloud the overall picture, which is one of continued losses, which it really for a party in opposition is not a good place to be in. One thing that's interesting is, both of those seats or both of those councils, I should say, are in London. And one of the interesting trends we've seen so far is that actually the two mainstream parties have had their best results in London. It's actually the rest of the country that is really, really revolting against either the Conservatives or against Labour. I mean, a lot of the seats were last contested. One reason for the big Tory loss, a lot of the seats were last contested in 2022 when the Conservatives were still riding high, when they were in government and could still win by-elections, when you'd see that giant Boris balloon outside the polling station in Hartlepool during the vaccine bounce, if people remember that. So it's inevitable that they were going to come down from that period. But it is also interesting how London seems to be bucking the trend in backing the mainstream. 75%, I think, of the seats that Labour is still held on to are in London, whereas it's the rest of the country that is, I think, more ripe for revolt.